This podcast intro, songs AI. It's on YouTube and Spotify. You can use your ears or use your eyes. It's 30 minutes randomized.
Welcome back to another episode of 30 Minutes Randomized. I am here with a LinkedIn homie, someone who I connected to because she just started killing the game on LinkedIn, and I just had to send a DM and say, I really appreciate your content. It's Rahlyn Gossen, who is the founder, CEO, principal. I think there's like a lot of titles on there of Revise Trials. Rahlyn, welcome to the podcast.
Steve, thanks for having me. We have never actually met face to face before, so that's also exciting as well.
Yeah, likewise. I know that you grew up in Southern Louisiana, and I appreciate the accent. Takes me home to my undergrad days at Tulane University. So just real quick before we start spinning the old wheel, if you could give people who are listening a little bit of context to what being the founder, CEO, principal at Revise means, and where you're coming from, like perspective-wise, and then we'll get going.
Yeah, so I am founder, CEO, principal, whatever you want to call it. We're a bootstrap company, so there's not a whole lot of formality around it. But now we're a 15-year-old company, so there's been an evolution. What we have now, we have a platform. It's a study communication system for sponsors to work with their research sites, essentially. Just a lot of the tooling and everything that study managers tend to use more piecemeal to create more of a system around that. So based off of many things we've seen over the years in our work, we just saw what felt like a need for something like that.
Got it. Fair to say, like, if we're compressing your like perspective, is you're trying really hard to make sites' lives easier. You're trying really hard to make sponsors' lives easier, and the sponsors are the one who are paying for that ease.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Cool.
that is the case. But
All
yes,
right.
we're trying to make it easier on both sides.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I have read and followed kind of your perspective over the years, and it seems like that's what you're trying to do. Okay, so if you've watched the show at all, you're going to be like, wait, what is going on? I really want to make sure that we get the origin story out of the way, and that's not always the case. And so the wheel is weighted 99.9% to this question. I've seen you post before. You started as a digital patient recruitment consultancy, and you actually spent 5 years as a trial coordinator, and then like maybe the only trial coordinator to tech founder I have ever heard of. So can you just like unpack that origin story a little bit, like how you went from coordinator to like founding your own thing, and then how it turned from whatever the original digital patient recruitment thing was into what it is now? Because I'm so interested.
Okay. I'll start kind of from the beginning and in
Yeah.
the evolution. So yes, I'm a former research coordinator. It has been a while now, but that very much shapes a lot of my perspective on things. And so yes, I did that 5 years. And at the time, I think I have had a sense for a while that I wanted my own business. And so at that time, also, I was living in Colorado and was planning to move back to Louisiana. So I thought, why not just append both my professional and personal life at the same time, right? Let's just do it
Smart.
all. Yeah. So, there was a little more planning involved, but that is essentially what I did. And having worked on the site side, I knew patient recruitment pretty well and had seen through central recruitment vendors, kind of experienced them through that side of things. I also have a long time interest in kind of digital marketing, social media, those things. And on the side was messing with various skills, right, in the digital marketing realm. And so ultimately I kind of combined the two into what was Rebar Interactive. We rebranded into Revise a few years ago. and where we were digital patient recruitment, and we were kind of the first. That was our focus. We didn't do just paper ads, or we didn't do any of that stuff. So did that a while, then moved into more of creating the websites, right? So more of the actual tech infrastructure around things, and not just buying ads and stuff like that. That led to creating a portal so that sites could go and get the referrals coming in from the website. And from there, we decided to attack kind of this larger communication problem that we had seen over the years, where that patient recruitment piece is just kind of one piece, one section of our platform now.
Got it. Was the study communication stuff something you experienced while you were a coordinator, or you kind of honed in and you were like, I've got this recruitment expertise, I want to offer it to more people, and then kind of throughout the course, I think there's some language on your website, or maybe it's on your LinkedIn, where like patient recruitment is often a communication problem, and that communication problem seeps into other aspects of trial conduct as well. So we're trying to like dig a little deeper at root causes with communication. I guess that was too many questions. Did you experience this when you were a coordinator, and is that part of what had your wheels ticking, or did you discover it as you were working in recruitment?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, to some extent, I suppose it was a little bit of a problem, but not nearly to the extent today, and kind of what we have seen working on the sponsor side. And that was eye-opening for me as well. Coming from being a coordinator, it's easy to be critical, right, of things that you see. And then I saw the other side of it, and it's like, yeah, this actually is really hard to get right. And it's only gotten more demanding, not only for sites. I know there's a conversation around that, but for sponsors as well, because trials in general have gotten more demanding. And with that, I think this communication problem has become more sort of acute over the years. And we started to notice that through our work. So definitely did not set out, over 15 years ago, that this is where we would be today. It has for sure been a journey and an evolution.
Yeah. Can you give me like, just because I have never worked at the site level, I've never worked at the sponsor level, and I don't really have a concept of your website talks about large trials being like the real sweet spot for this, like hundreds of sites. Can you give me just a concrete example of something like they're using Relay, which is your platform at Revise, to solve where like people are high-fiving because it exists, that they would be like pulling their hair out if it didn't?
Yeah. It's hundreds of sites. That's one thing. Another kind of layer that further exacerbates things is number of years. So the longer a trial goes on, and then
Mm,
operationally demanding. So those are kind of the layers that we have identified. It's not a perfect mental model, but generally speaking, the conditions that exist that sort of make this more of a problem. And so for us, studies, some of it, I honestly was surprised. Like, one of the modules in our portal is document sharing. And you think there are other people solving this problem, right? But in many cases, we have learned that sponsors are not always happy with the existing options. So, that even something that seems very straightforward, and I kind of question, do we even need to build something like this, where, they're getting value from that. And then, we have some things that are maybe a little more interesting or sophisticated. But I think that example goes to show, you would think it was sort of a solved problem. And it turns out that even something like that, in a lot of studies, there's not a great system for it.
got it. That is interesting. All right. We're gonna head back to the wheel now that we've got the origin story out of the way. Thank you for sharing that. Um, and now they'll all be okay. So I have been asking this to everyone, and I know you've been a little bit outspoken here interestingly in both directions, which I really appreciate. But how are you personally using AI tools? Like, what are you loading up and what are you trying to do? I mean, within or without, outside of the context of work?
Yeah, I do use AI both professionally and personally. I would say, and yeah, I am critical sometimes because I want to use the tool in the best. There's no perfect tool, right? And so you have to understand the flaws. But I have been using it a good bit. I'm primarily a Claude Code user.
Okay.
Um, Occasionally Codex. Um, oh, I try and keep things so fairly open format supportable. A lot of my use looks very boring. Markdown documents, things like that. I have tried to focus a lot of my use on kind of the things that I can do as a founder. And some of these are like pretty boring things that you in the past are hard to find time to do. But you need your own thinking. It's not something you can get from whatever, AI is trained on, but it can perhaps help you sort of document and define some of that thinking better. So that tends to be a lot of what I focus on. Uh, Research a good bit as well, especially around primary sources. I find AI to be really good, obscure databases, things like that, any primary source. So yeah, broadly speaking, I would say those are the examples.
Right on. Yeah, I'm like just graduating in recent weeks from just using it basically as a Google replacement to maybe some more sophisticated like project ongoing use. I really appreciate though like that idea of no one knows what you know, and so if the answer requires you, then using AI to generate something is going to be like a fool's errand. But AI has access to the entire concept of like logical fallacies or whatever. So you can apply it as an antagonist, like, hey, I'm thinking this. Are there any holes in this argument? I use that. I do that a lot. And that has been really helpful to me, honestly. Um, Very cool. You're not generating like AI slop memes, which I appreciate. Here we go. All right. Okay, so this is kind of a product question. How often do customers tell you what they want? Like, hey, I got this feature request, when what they're really describing is some underlying pain that maybe the thing they're asking for wouldn't fix. And if this is a terribly worded question, I can try and reword it.
Yeah, it happens a lot. Pretty much as a rule, if I get a request, I always want to understand the underneath where is it coming from. Because sometimes the way that they're proposing to solve it may be the best way. Other times there may be another way that's, cheaper, easier, etc. So um oftentimes that does happen. Or where they generally like know what they want and it kind of fits what I think, but some of the nuances of how they envision it is maybe based on things they've heard or seen, and it's not
Okay,
necessarily how I would suggest to execute on that particular thing. So you can think about, a feature, right? Something, let's say we use the example, document sharing, and everyone thinks they know what that means. And
sure.
roughly speaking, that's true. But when you design a feature and you sort of execute on it, there are different ways that you can go with it. And so
Yeah.
that's the part that where we kind of take over based on, really trying to understand the problem.
Yeah. Do you have any stories off the top of your head, and if you don't, that's okay, where someone's asked for like something very specific, like, hey, we want this dashboard or whatever, or like this integration, and when you've done your due diligence and peeled back the layer, the pain they're actually trying to solve is like something totally different, and you've solved it in a different way, and then at the end of the day, they've been like, oh, you figured it out, thank you.
I'm trying to think of a good example of that. It tends to be smaller things, I would say,
Okay.
that rather than bigger things. But in general, too, I would say a lot of things in our platform and a little bit of a product philosophy for us is they are inspired by the ways that teams are already working. It's just trying to kind of elevate it a step above, so that we're working off of sort of existing mental models and ways of doing so they feel familiar, right? Because imagine both on the on the sponsor side too, but especially on the site side, and as many people discuss, using different systems and all of that, the more familiarity you can bring to something that's maybe slightly different, the better. So things like a visit calculator that might have been in Excel, we have a visit planner that not only does the calculations but has some other things that kind of build off of how teams are already working. So there is some of that as well.
Got it. Really cool. Okay. That makes sense. I am not a product designer nor a product designer's son, so this is all very interesting to me because it's stuff I don't know anything about. Okay. All right. Zooming out from just from like Revise into the industry in general, like I think it's really cool that you've been working on technology since before it was popular, I guess. It seems that way anyways. Like 2010 is a pretty early head start compared to stuff that's popping up in the last couple of years. Is there anything you've seen that we've gotten better at as an industry over the last 5 to 10 years? Maybe that doesn't get enough credit or that we're now just kind of taking for granted?
I do think there are some technologies that were fairly new when I was a coordinator, that are fairly normal, right? And adopted, and in the end have been a an improvement. Um, even if you want to talk about EDC, and there's flaws there, right? But overall, so things like that, I would say it's just these things do take time. The other thing I would say, and it's not necessarily kind of a we've solved this thing, but one thing that I like that there is more attention on in general is the site side of things in the last several years, that there is more of a conversation around that, that I think didn't really exist um, in any real way several years ago. So I think, regardless of where some of us we may have different positions of where we stand on these different things, but the fact that it's a conversation and a concern, I think, is a very good thing.
Yeah, I haven't heard a single conversation about implementing something new at the site level that doesn't include how are they going to feel about this. Which it's table stakes to at least consider their perspective and get it, which seems like progress. Like that's kind of been the norm for me the whole time, but I'm hearing from folks like you and elsewhere that like that has not historically been the case. So that does seem like a step forward. I think also, one of the first emails I ever sent, I got a response that was a rebuke. One in health patient recruitment company I worked for had the tagline like precision subject recruitment, and someone wrote back and was like, "We don't use the word subject. It doesn't really reflect the value or like what's going on. The full person. We prefer patient." And I've seen you too post on like you don't like the word lead in the context of patient recruitment because it just is pretty reductive. And in the same way, I think the site voice being considered, the patient voice, it's a little annoying because it's become so ubiquitous and so many people are trying to sell using the patient voice. But the fact that you can't have a conversation without people asking how our patient's going to feel and respond, it feels like progress to me. Cool. Yeah, that was just me yapping and I didn't give you a question to answer. So bad host. All right. We are rapidly approaching the back third of the wheel here. All right. So I'm on your website and I came across this very specific line under your FAQ of who shouldn't work with Revise. And I've got to ask, it said you shouldn't work with Revise if you associate investor backing, large teams, or high market visibility with competence. Who hurt you? that's not that's not really the question. The question is
Yeah.
this feels very specific for website copy. So is there a story here?
Yeah. Well, that entire FAQ section was written to kind of, I don't want to waste people's time. Everyone, the technology space, it's a lot, right? And so it's a lot for sponsors to wade through. So I just like to put it all out there. So it's nothing specific, but I think oftentimes, and we have worked with very large sponsors, so it's clearly not an issue for a lot of people, but I think a lot of times there's this association with, raised hundreds of millions of dollars and the team is, this many people, that's sort of a stamp of approval or is associated with competence, but they're kind of independent things and choices that a company can make in terms of its operations. And in my experience, we are bootstrapped by choice. And so I do have my opinions on this, that you do get some amount of latitude and there are advantages to not going down that path. It's just, it's different paths. And so, yeah, it's just to, if you need, there's a saying like no one's going to get fired by hiring, whatever, IBM, whatever. And so if you're one of those people that, you just need it, you're going to go with IBM, we have our focus. We are very competent in my view. But if you're looking for a investor backing and some of these other things, it's not that, but we come with other things and, some independence and flexibility that you don't have with VC backing.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I think there's certainly a sense that like, well, oh, they raised $60 million. How could $60 million be wrong? And therefore they're, like automatically trustworthy. Or the competence line was what really stood out to me. If you assume that these things equal competence, then your mindset is probably like you're probably not a great fit for us because we don't have those things and it's by design, and you're going to be questioning us the whole step of the way, and we don't have time for that here at Revise. I just really like that you have a strong opinion and you're not afraid to say it. Like I think a lot of people, anything that could potentially cost you a customer is it's really hard to take that stance in public, I think. Maybe it's not for you. I don't know. Are you
Yeah.
worried about people reading that and then being like, deuces?
Yeah. Not really. I mean, it's better in the end. It's better for the relationship. I would rather, someone that for whatever reason we're not a great fit for to lay it out there and kind of give them the
Yeah.
information that they need. We're more about trying to build, long-term credibility and trust. And I just don't think that is served by sort of pretending to be things we're not. I get the concern that companies have. And also that is another advantage of being bootstrapped because
Yeah.
we don't need, VC math requires you to everyone needs to be your customer and it doesn't have to be that way. So for us to do very, very well. And so that means, well, who is the best fit? Like who can we provide the most value to, and putting it out there so that they can even also self-identify. So because we want to do good work ultimately. And so, I just like to lay it out there.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Know who you're for and know who you're not for matters. Okay. Um, this is a personal question. Personally, what is something you've optimized that absolutely did not deserve optimization?
Yeah, so I definitely get caught in this sort of trap. Uh, I have some perfectionistic tendencies, and that can be really good at times because, obsessive about product things, particular, sites and what they're dealing with. But other times why have I been doing that? That has been coming up with AI a lot, actually. And it's a constant kind of mental game of, with my own psychology of, should I continue going down this path, or is this sort of sunk cost fallacy, and I'm fiddling with things that really just shouldn't even be fiddled with at this point? Maybe I need to take a different path, etc. So I actually I'm finding that coming up a fair amount these days with AI stuff. And it's hard because sometimes you really will find value in certain things. And other times it's, why did I spend my time on that? So I don't have, I'm trying to think of a particular example, but this has been kind of a recurring theme with
Okay.
AI
All right.
recently.
Yeah. No worries. It is sometimes you get to the end of the road and you're like, all that time saved doesn't matter at all. Awesome. Good. Cool. All right. We only have two more. We are doing very well on time. Okay. What's something the Relay platform intentionally doesn't do?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're focused on communication, right? So a lot of things outside of that, but also I would say anything where a site can kind of bring their own, or it may just be better to allow them to bring their own. We see this as a study communication platform where there is added benefit to having the sponsor kind of own communication, pre-populate the site's portal with some things. So things like, for instance, e-consent, not doing that, you know, because there's not a whole lot of added value from our perspective, and sites may have their own tools for e-consent. Why force them into something along those lines? So
Can I push back on that and ask the
yeah,
question? I think a lot of people would say, well, the barrier to building an e-consent product now is like virtually zero. So why not just throw it in there? Um, do you get that pushback, or is anyone on the team like, well, we could build it. Why not?
we regularly have to, I mean, this is one of the biggest things that I'm like protective about from a product perspective, because I think it is one of the things that has led many products in this industry down a not great path that leads to a poor user experience for sites, is just because we can, and not a lot of thought is put into, why are we doing it? How does it contribute to the overall product vision? Is it just distraction? How is it implemented? And it's, especially if you get a sponsor request, well, can you just do this? Right. Back to your point, like saying no sometimes. But the product from our perspective is, that's, once you go down that path, it's hard to undo. So now I'm always open to being sort of corrected on, well, maybe this actually is something that sponsors should bring to the trial and sites shouldn't have a choice, or that's not actually how that works, right? I'm open to that. But if the response is, well, it's so easy, why not do it? And even some, like, I think we would do a good job at e-consent. There's things like that come up, but you have to choose your focus and be disciplined about it. So that's,
Okay.
yeah.
No, I love it. It's great. All right, we got the last one. I might ask a tricky one depending on how short this is.
Okay.
Okay. I love live things, and I think in the age of AI, it's important. So, what was the last ticketed event you attended, where you had to pay to get in to see something, live music, movie, whatever?
Um, well, if it's just, I mean, true last, it probably would be an Austin FC game. We have season tickets, but if it's
Yo,
like a one-off type thing, a concert, I would say Leon Bridges and Charlie Crockett. I
all
saw
right.
several months ago.
Uh, you have my approval. Any season ticket holder of MLS is fine by me. Um, We have like 30 seconds. I just thought of this off the top of my head. I've been struggling to figure out like a way to close episodes because I'm very awkward whenever I'm not typing on LinkedIn. LinkedIn? Oh no, I've got to edit that out. I won't. Is there anyone you think I should try and reach out to get on the pod? Like someone that you just think is cool and their voice doesn't get heard enough, or an industry person? Maybe they do get heard enough, but they should be heard in this format. Just like a shout out, essentially. And if not, that's okay, because it feels like you're picking a favorite and people hate doing that. But if there's a name that popped immediately in your mind, like, ooh, I'd like to hear them interviewed, I would love that.
Um, that is tough, and I know I could come up
Okay.
with some names if I had more time to think about it. But there are on the technology side, I think there's so many interesting people.
There are, and it's
My
really
only
mean to ask you to
preference
say one
point,
person.
but yeah, I'm gonna have to send you some names. It's too hard.
All right. Send me some names, and then I'm just gonna like put them in writing over top of your face on this section of the thing, and put them in the show notes or something. Rahlyn, thank you so much for joining me. I know I really appreciated getting to hear your perspective and meet you officially for the first time. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. All right. Cheers.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to 30 Minutes Randomized. If you enjoyed the show, please feel free to like, subscribe, review, or share it with a friend. Until next time, I'm your host, Steve Wimmer, reminding you to stay random.